OK. Donc, tout le monde, juste un message d'intérêt général. À la fin des présentations, on va faire un tirage au sort pour des prix. Donc, si vous n'êtes pas venu me voir à date pour mettre votre nom dans le petit gobelet à la pause, n'oubliez pas de le faire. Donc, message interest, general interest. So, we're doing a raffle at the end of the presentations. So, if you haven't come and seen me yet at the break, don't forget to do so, to put your name in the cup. And after the last presentation, we have a couple of few prizes. So if you want to have a chance to win. And yep, that's all. I'll just start this. Okay, so for our next presentation, we have Mike Hoff. So Mike has been in IT for over 30 years. Yes, he's older than he looks, including roles as programmer, DBA, sysadmin, BA, PMP, and various leadership positions. He's experienced the highs and lows of IT in retail, healthcare, government, consulting, a .com, and a brief stint as IT manager at Winsport Canada. Mike does occasional public speaking engagements on job hunting and risk management, and is famous for telling anyone who will listen that our role is to be the midwives for the cloud. So please welcome Mike Hoff.
Thank you. Merci. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. I feel like there's a lot of headwind against me because I don't speak French, je parle un peu français. This diversity inclusion event, I'm kind of lucky to be here. You guys have all had lunch, so you're kind of settling in and you probably fall asleep. So I'll try and keep this as exciting and engaging as I can. So yeah, the discussion here is a little bit different. Thanks for the introduction. I think that since I've written that up, I've been at this for almost 40 years. Like I said, that little less gray in that photo there. I've had quite a few roles. I've been manager, architect, DBA, programmer, software developer. My current role is, I don't have that on there. I do a disaster recovery program for BlackBerry. How many have heard of BlackBerry? Okay, good. We don't do phones anymore. We still exist. I get that a lot. We do cybersecurity and IoT. If you're interested in that, feel free to look at our website for those of you who are job hunting. And so I presented on risk and ethics, on Linux security. I have a couple certifications here and there. I often do this discussion on, I often do a lecture on job hunting tips and tricks. How many people are students right now? How many people are looking for work? And that's probably the similar group. No, not so many? Okay, well then I'll keep that in mind. So I did that lecture around Western Canada and I kind of did it over and over again. So I thought, well, I want to fold in my love of movies to the discussion on job hunting and give you guys a little bit of a understanding of what the skill sets are in IT. An old guy like me, then for 40 years, I tried to tell IT professionals that sometimes it's the non-technical skills that are important. And I'll pepper this in with a chat about movies. How many movie fans are there? Okay, you guys are all going to be answering questions. This is interactive here, so good. I'll talk about it. Yeah, so I've been fortunate to be on TV, radio, and then print as Movie Maverick Mike. See, this always sounds like bragging when I do that, but I thought you guys are all listening so I can brag a bit. So I did the CTV National News 3 times. To talk about movies and trying to bring the two worlds together a little bit. Also, as I was talking with Nadia, I've been with the GDG, the Google Developer Group. Well, you guys know what that is. For several years, I'm a mentor for Western Canada. I'm out here for the eclipse. So Nadia was gracious enough to jam me in for this. Okay, so a little bit about myself. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. This is the movie that got me started into movies. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I'm happy to talk about after the session, if you want to talk about Marvel movies, if you want to talk about, I'm a big Bollywood movie fan. If you want to talk about which Khan is my favorite, I can talk about that. Hrithik Roshan is my guy. I see all his movies, so yeah. I don't like Shah Rukh Khan, though, sorry. Someone from India told me, he said, you can't say that. I'm like, don't like Shah Rukh Khan. Amir Khan is good. Everybody loves Amir Khan. So, and I'm happy to talk about movies. I don't know a lot of French movies. There's not much to say there. I tried to get my daughter as bilingual to watch Bon Cop, Bad Cop the other day, and there's a sequel to that apparently, so yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about 7 things at Hollywood. So normally when you think of Hollywood movies, you think of, oh, those guys are way off in what they do about IT, the way they represent it, the people they represent, certainly the gender of the people that they represent. So I want to talk a little bit, there are some things that you can glean based on Hollywood movies, okay? This one, does anyone know who this character is? What movie that's from? Okay, that's a Star Wars guy. That's from The Phantom Menace. At the trailer of the movie, he says, communication disruption can only mean one thing, invasion. So the first thing you can learn about is communication. It's very important within the IT industry. In this movie, it kicks off the plot for The Phantom Menace, for Star Wars fans. I often tell people that your communication skills can be as important as your technical skills in looking for work and in working with other people. So one thing Hollywood doesn't teach you directly, but one thing that's interesting about is being able to have different types of communication skills, whether that's, well, obviously the bilingual parts of it. Email, if people are used to Discord, you talk in Discord. If people are comfortable with text, you know, whatever the chat, Telegram, whatever the different versions are, you want to be able to take advantage of those different types of communication, okay? The different types of methods. So one thing to keep in mind is in your IT career, you will be valued for being a strong communicator, being able to communicate in terms of risk. I'll talk about that a couple times in this presentation, okay? Being able to communicate in non-technical terms, okay? The people that you work with, especially the business-facing people, they're not interested in LUN design, they're not interested in database queries. Look at this cool Ruby on Rails code I wrote. Not interested. They want to know things like, how do I lower our expenses? How do I lower our costs? How do I increase our market share? Stuff like that. So you want to be able to speak to them. Also, try and get knowledgeable in the projects you work in and the organizations you're in to get knowledgeable and speaking with the stakeholders in their language. Again, business-facing people are used to business language. When I give this lecture in Western Canada, I'm from Southern Alberta originally, I tell people that in Calgary, because it's a large petroleum industry, if you want to differentiate yourself when you're looking for work, you have to be able to demonstrate that you know the industry that you're in. If I have 2 resumes, CVs, from 2 different women, and one says, this is my Linux expert, and this is a Linux expert who has knowledge in land contracts, petroleum, so on. So I'm afraid I don't know the industry out here. If it was in Toronto, it would be the financial industry, right? So a little bit off script I'm saying is that your skills aside from your technical skills, if you're looking for work, I'm a hiring manager, if you give me your resume, I'm going to find 100 people who have PHP, MySQL, you know, whatever the database is, cloud skills, all that stuff. I'm looking for the people who have that and also have communication skills, business skills, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay? That's Paula Patton from a movie. I'm a big fan of time travel movies. It's from, is it Deja Vu? I think it's called, is the movie. She's with Denzel Washington. And there's one line in the movie, he says, what if you had to communicate the hardest thing in the world and no one would believe you? And she says, I'd try. Good skill to have. Okay, this guy. One does not walk simply. Walk into Mordor, yes, from the Lord of the Rings, right? How many people seen the Lord of the Rings? Okay, you've seen the Lord of the Rings, know the books, get an idea, you know. This is all about teamwork. Boromir, right? Boromir, yeah. Boromir did not take the ring back to Mordor, Mount Doom on his own. He worked with the elves, the dwarfs, and the humans to put it together. I find a lot of IT people, again, you tend to be like, we tend to be like, we're problem solvers, right? You know, we're not, you know, I don't care about what the business is doing. Just give me some problems, I'll solve them, and we'll go from there. So you want to make sure that you develop your team skills, okay? It can be easy in a way when you're committing code and you run through the, the QA, UAT, all that the pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline to work with a team, but you want to develop your teamwork skills. Again, back to communication. Understand who is going to be doing the work with you and what their expectations are. Sometimes your customers are part of your team. When I started on IT, I found it was very, how do I say this? I find a lot of IT people, they fall in love with their ideas. These days, that becomes an app. I've got a brilliant app. This app is so brilliant. Once I get it into the App Store, it's going to change the world. You know what? There's a lot of people who have that idea, right? You want to be able to work with a team. You want to talk to your customers. I learned about midway through my career that the really the important product that you made, whether it was an app or whatever it was, if it sells, it's important. If nobody uses it, it's not so important. A bit draconian, that view of things, but that's one way to look at it. So make sure when you're working with your team that you don't lose track of the customer. Who are we making this app for? This is for the financial group. This is for the R&D department. This is for the AI team is going to run off with this and do something else. You want to be clear what they're looking for. And that's what I say about feedback. Okay? Get feedback like Boromir did, and not simply take the ring into Mordor. My daughter is a huge Lord of the Rings fan. She takes it very seriously, little over the edge. She does cosplay and all that stuff, so that's always fun. Teamwork, okay? Any questions so far? Does this make sense so far? I hope, I tend to talk quickly, so I hope that's in English. That's not so bad. Again, Aliens, one of my favorite movies. For those who have seen Aliens, before the monsters attack, Ripley says, remember, short, controlled bursts. I love that line. One of the best parts of the movie, any movie, in my opinion, when the aliens come to attack and they still have a moment to say, let's think straight. Remember, short, controlled burst. And I always think that's interesting from a development point of view, because you're like, okay, let's still do our documentation. Did you do the QA? Well, we still need to do, I know we got a deadline, we're going to do the QA, right? So, okay. This guy, Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. What does Jack Nicholson say near the end when he's on a trial of A Few Good Men? Collaboration. You can't handle the truth. Have people seen A Few Good Men? If you get a chance, I showed this to my kids. So again, as a would-be movie critic, I get to be critical. It's kind of a boring movie, to be honest, A Few Good Men. But Tom Cruise plays the prosecutor, and Jack Nicholson as a 4-star, can't see there, general. He's on trial for murder, second-degree murder. And Tom Cruise has him pinned in the corner. And he says, I want the truth. And he says, you can't handle the truth. And he goes off in this big tirade, and you're like, wow, maybe he's not guilty after all. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's collaboration versus smarts. So again, for IT people, when I coach people, I tell them, if you're the smartest person in the room, you've got the wrong team, okay? You want to try and make sure that you surround yourself with clever people, right? And you want to be able to, I find a lot of time IT people are like, well, I know the best code, or I know how to do releases, I know how to write a change ticket, all that stuff, and they don't, what we said about feedback, right? And teamwork. So make sure that you're collaborating with others. And this is a skill, okay? I did this lecture once at a similar lecture at a community college in Calgary, and I said to people, the bunch of IT students, and I said, I know you're all introverts. I used to be an introvert. And there was one guy in the front row who was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, I mean, for me to stand up in here, I used to be the, slide pizza under the door and leave me alone kind of guy, right? So you want to make sure, you said you tend to start to stay in your own head, and you tend not to look to other people, right? So develop the skills of communication, be able to work with other people. Don't just Google the answers, be able to look out to other people, other smart people. Delegate responsibility, okay? As you grow in your career and you become a manager or in charge of larger projects, you can't do all the work yourself. Get good at delegation, communication. And then education. People often, when you interview, people will say, what's your path towards education? Are you still learning? Stuff like that, okay? So again, sometimes collaborating with people is more important than being the smartest person in the room. That's hard for some people to hear. You got to kind of lay down your sword. I should have put this on the Lord of the Rings slide, and rely on other people. Okay? The Matrix, what if I told you that the world that you saw, right? Think in different terms, challenge your beliefs. There. This one I don't have a very good picture of. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies. Has anyone seen True Lies? It's kind of an old James Bond kind of movie. Just briefly, he authorizes the Navy, the Marines flying a jet. Not sure why Marines have jets, but that's the American military. And they blow up a bridge with the terrorists on it that have nuclear weapons on board. And he says, those missiles won't set off the nukes, will they? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Manage risk. I talked about this a little bit before too. I often tell IT people, our job as IT people is often risk management. You're lowering, like I said, lowering the cost of something. You're lowering the risk of something, right? If you work for NASA, if you work for, even anybody who does mechanical work, how am I lowering the risk? At BlackBerry, we do a lot of cars. We do a lot of software for cars. So a lot of our software isn't terribly exciting, but it does help with sensors and crash detection and stuff like that. So when you're doing this, understand what is the risk, what's the important things to the company you're working for. Getting back to what I said about the business aspects of it. What's important to them? Speak in non-technical terms. I did a lecture once on a risk register. I don't know if you guys have heard that. There's different ways to measure risk. The way I've seen it is impact times likelihood equals risk. And it's a good tool to be able to communicate how much risk you're willing to take on and how much risk your project, your problem solving is going to solve. I'll come back to this one a little bit too. Success. Understand what success is. Again, as IT people, especially in software development, it's a release. Did we release that code? Good. Did it work? Sure. It got through QA. It's out there. It's 1.1. And then is that successful? Did we win? Did we get more people? Did we lower cost? Is it less bugs? How many bugs did we kill? We killed 100. We got 10 more. So in IT, it seems to be fairly obvious what success looks like. Code out the door, right? Or that product hit the street. But you want to understand what it is as you're doing the project so you know when you hit the target. I had one fellow I worked with who said, he was a military background, he said, have we landed? And I thought that was kind of odd. You think, well, how we would know if we had landed? And again, it goes back to the business communication. You want to be able to talk about what does success look like? Did I help you, this team, and when I changed your application? Was that a good, beneficial? Okay, for those who've seen Oppenheimer, okay, did you like Oppenheimer? Yeah. I thought it was kind of boring. It's really long. It's 3 hours long, yeah. So in Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy says to Matt Damon, what's the risk? And he says, well, it's really small. And Matt Damon says 0 would be good. Okay, so that's one example of communicating out that will get you most of the way there. Okay, back to the Lord of the Rings. Everybody knows what this guy says when he meets the Balrog. You shall not pass. What would that be en français? What would that be? Ne passez pas? That's good, yeah. Okay, so this is a thing to help others. Again, this is a little bit difficult when you're starting your career, right? So he says the famous line, and then he dies. Sort of, for those of you who have seen the movie, right? Okay, so this is a plea to IT people to work with others, to help others, and help them in their growth. So I'll go a little bit off script. As a job hunter, those of you who are looking for work or those who are considering that, when you're out there, you're always like, okay, what job is that for me? Is that, you looked on the job boards, you looked on LinkedIn, and you're trying to find out where I can match and where I can go, right? How many people are on LinkedIn? Okay, just again, a little off script. I talked with a hiring manager once, and she said to me, I want to see your, when you apply for the job, I look at your resume on LinkedIn. And someone in the crowd asked her, what else do you look at? Nothing, she says. It's LinkedIn or nothing. So for those, again, I'm a little off script here. For those who are looking for work, your LinkedIn profile has to match the job you're looking for. Okay, I can talk more about that offline. Is that time up? Does that mean time's up? Okay. So, but you want to be in a position to help others. Again, as a new job seeker, you're looking out for yourself, but you want to be able to help others. As a senior manager now, I tend to get posts sent to me from LinkedIn for director posts. And I saw one months ago that wasn't for me, but I gave it to my friend Mark, who's a high-level guy, Mark Mousseau. And he applied, got the interview, didn't get the job, but I was able to help position him for that, right? So as you're looking for jobs, you want to be able to think in those terms, to think, this project needs, I don't know, I keep coming back to Ruby on Rails. This project needs strong C++ expertise. I don't have that, but I know that person who has, right? Or this project, someone's looking for someone who's knowledgeable in the Maria database. I know MySQL, I use NoSQL, but she over there, she's helped me before with the Maria database. So it's like almost like building your network, but you'll be surprised how often helping other people can help you. Does that make sense? And like I said, for new people, when I was starting out, I mean, I'm like, everybody was a competitor. But you'll find out the more you can help people, the more you position yourself as a helpful person, the more they'll go, well, Mike, you know a person who does this, or you know a project manager who does this, and then you can kind of go from there, okay? And again, talking about success, one thing I do tell new job seekers is when they're looking for work, usually when you're looking for work, you're looking for the job that pays the best. I can't blame anybody for that. It's a good metric. But you want to think, I'm using that over and over again. Try to also think of other aspects of your job that you would enjoy, okay? Including helping others. Okay, from Avengers, this is Thanos, who was not helpful. At one point, he attacked his own people. 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, this one. This is a little bit more obscure. What's that? I'm glad you're here today, boy. That's good, yeah. Believe in what you do. So, Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man says, I'm something of a scientist myself, and this has been memed several times. Okay, one thing Hollywood can teach you is about belief. When I go to work, do I believe in what I'm doing is making the world a better place? That's pretty broad, but are you feeling good about this? I worked, even though I worked in Calgary, I never did actually work for the petroleum industry. But I know people is like, I don't know if I want to work in a job which drills holes in the ground and put carbon into the air. I mean, that's up to you, right? But it's important to believe in what you do. As I'll go again, if you're looking for work, my other presentation, hiring managers can smell disinterest, okay? So apply for jobs that you want, apply for industries you want, apply for companies you want, because you're much more likely to karmically do well there, okay? Oh yes, that's right, I forgot to change that slide, except that's a new word I made up, competency. That means bad spelling. Okay, so yeah, I mean, believe in what you do will really help you in your job and in your career and helping others, okay? You can only work for so long doing a job that you don't believe in, to be honest. This one is a bit drastic, but from Batman, the Joker, Alfred, Michael Caine says, some people want to see the world burn. I thought this was appropriate because he's destroying a bunch of money. Sure. Okay, I'm just about out of time here. Leonardo DiCaprio, and celebrate success. One thing we don't do in IT a lot, this is from The Great Gatsby, you may have seen this memed, is make sure that you reward people. Be the praise person in your job. Don't be afraid to say good job. Don't be afraid to have someone come to tell you that, okay? For those of you who are fans of Mythbusters, it says, failure is always an option. I don't like that. Success works a lot better than failure. Aim for success. So failure can teach you things, but not as much as success can. And look for those wins. Have that moment when you've released your code, when you've killed that bug, when something's out there in the wild, you go, we did really good. Look around, give praise to other people. IT doesn't get that a lot, especially in the back room. You only get credit when the system's up, right? It's only when the system's down that you get the, can you come in? Let's fix that, you know, log on. There's my guy, Riddick Roshan, Bollywood star. In one movie, he says there's a big difference between winning and ruling. Okay, what have I got left? Okay, so the last slide, kind of a letdown, is that this is what we usually see in Hollywood. I should flip these around. This is the hackers in the control rooms. How many people have seen that in the movies, right? They've got the neon colors here. They've got the hush lights. A Caucasian male is always doing something horrible here, right? And then it's someone who would ever work in a room that has red light like that? No, that's crazy, yeah. And so just wanted to say that, just so we're clear, Hollywood doesn't always get it right. They tend to dwell on this stuff. I won't talk about that. 2 hands on the keyboard, no. Yeah, so I'll be around for a little bit if there's any questions about career planning, job hunting, stuff like that. If you want to come tell me about your favorite movie, I'll tell you why it sucks if you want, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Is there any questions for Mike over there?
On the slide where you have Jack Nicholson saying you can't handle the truth, what it made me think of is you often need to be brave to tell the truth, you know, not to be a yes man or a yes woman. But I've always tried to, I have a similar background, and I've always tried to be transparent. And sometimes I'm told you're not strategic. No, my strategy is transparency. But you need to be brave to tell, because you have technical knowledge that not all, that your business people don't know.
Yeah, and I think that touches on a couple of things. You don't want to be contentious in the I'm right, you're wrong situation. I've said throughout my career, I've said to people, if I can stand in a box and say I did this for the good of the company, then I'm willing to tell the truth. And you know, to be able to speak outside of my area, I think that helps a lot. Yeah. Other questions? You can just go from there, I think. The floor, yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. I think it was the second point. You talked about people from the industry being able to better communicate and vulgarize, but how can, on the management side, also help the IT people do better? Because I think like sometimes there's like people in the business development side, and then there's people in the technical expertise, and then they lack understanding. So how can they collaborate?
So I would say to further your career, that's your role to be able to come to their world. You need to cross into their boundary. It can be difficult. They don't want to hear about storage design, about APIs, about the great cloud, you know, all the VMs you spun up and stuff like that. So it's a little bit one-sided to say that to them, but you want to be able to understand what are their pain points, what do they need? Is it more throughput? Is it more features? And you have to kind of you have to be the one to bridge that gap, unfortunately.
Because I don't study in IT or data. I'm actually in business management. So I wanted to know if I can do anything to help.
Oh, the other way around. Yeah, I mean, I think an understanding of what's the cloud is, you know, how things work in the cloud. Yeah, it really depends. It depends if you want to learn about the software development cycle, about code releases, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a strong answer there. I'll even take movie questions, you know, if you want.
Super, thank you. Thank you so much for the idea of Hollywood, so then we can actually compare ourselves to a role model or role hero that we like. So the question is, what would be your role model or role hero in some of movie, your favorite one?
Oh, that's a good question. So I didn't get to it. I'm a James Bond fan. That's a little bit difficult conversation because the Sean Connery James Bond is not a very honorable person. This is going to sound crazy, but honestly, Hrithik Roshan, my guy, the Bollywood guy, he sings, he lip syncs, he dances, he acts, he can cry on demand, that kind of guy. He seems like a real well-rounded guy. I don't look to him as for career-wise. I just wouldn't mind to look and sound like Hrithik Roshan. I don't know if that answers your
Yes,
question.
I know, but that's cool. And how do you see yourself in your business or your role in professionally? Like
So
how can inspire you for?
Yeah,
your
I
job?
think throughout this presentation, you'll see a lot about communication and in between. I like to be, and I would advise people to be the in-between guy, the in-between woman, who's in between the business, which we talked about before, and the IT, BAs, PMs, data analysts, stuff like that, even data scientists, right? Stuff like that, because the technical skills, there's lots of people who have technical skills, and you can get that offshore. There's lots of people, there's not many people who have strong communication skills. If you're the woman who they can come to and say, she'll understand what my requirements are, she'll follow up, she'll be able to track the project to a strong level. I think I'm answering your questions. Then, and you become the communicator, problem solver, then they won't worry so much about what your specific technical skills are. They'll come to you as the person who can solve problems and can communicate. I think that's a good position to put yourself in, and that's what I strive for as well.
Thank you.
How much time do we have?
I have a so me, thank you so much for your presentation. I had a question for when you want to apply for a job. Like there are so many strategies to, for example, for the CV, and there's the strategy of show don't tell, because at some point you can write anything on our CV. For example, for the soft skills, communicating, since it's the first criteria of selection, like what do you think of the strategy of show don't tell?
I'm not sure I'm a fan of that, to be honest. So I'll give you a quick, I'm not a resume person. My resume is not that great. But I will tell you, when you're looking for a job, number one, your resume has to match what's in the job description because of the pattern matching, right? So if it says you have to have this much experience in PHP, you have to have that. Must be knowledgeable in, like I said, Maria database, whatever the tools are, or must be familiar with AWS tools. So number one, you have to have those keywords in there. And I'll go a little bit off. You can't lie. Don't lie in your resume. But put that in there. Number two, your resume in the first page has to grab them. I am the right woman for the job. They won't go to the second page, no matter how brilliant your resume is. And I know for some people, the resume is not very long. But in the first paragraph, you're tell them why I'm the right person for this job. And then by the end of the page, they have to be nearly convinced. So you have to shorten it, point form, okay? And you have to cut out stuff, all the great stuff you did. Like for me here, all the stuff I did with COBOL and Pascal, nobody cares, right? So you have to put that in there. What was I going to say about the job? Yeah, the other thing, in my other lecture I say, back to the teamwork one, when you're looking for work, hiring managers are looking for people who have experience working in a team, and that doesn't have to be in IT. It will play on your resume if you say, I work with this community group, I work with this church group, mosque, whatnot. We built a playground together, all this stuff. That, if you can demonstrate that you worked in a project with other people towards a goal, that is very important to put on your resume. Do you send out a cover letter when you send out your resume? Always send a cover letter when you send your resume, okay? You can get a template and send that out too. I'm happy to talk more about job hunting stuff after as well too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Actually, I would like to ask this question since we talked about actors. So actors in movie tend to usually be out of their real character in real life, so they just play a role. And I personally work in hotel management, and in the personal side, I'm very, let's say, sensitive person, but whenever I'm at work, there's some policies that I need to follow. And sometimes I just find it so hard to try, how do we say, to drown the line between how I'm personally am and what the work requires me to be. So I just feel like I just need to play a role of like more strict and with the managing employees and stuff. So I would like some advice of like how to have a balance between who you really are and what works requires you to be as a manager.
Yeah, well, I would say, the first part is to be professional. When my kids are older, when they interview for your job, I say, don't be yourself, be the best version of yourself, which sounds a little bit cold, right? Ideally, you can find a place that has the right culture that suits you. If they're a bunch of guys, people in hoodies, and they're sitting around desks, sure. If they're suits, ties, skirts, dresses, and that fits you, you can try and find that out beforehand. But yeah, I think that there's some merit in. Years ago, I was taught about different communication skills, right? There's some merit in being able to change the communication skills that you have and the way you communicate. I've been in situations where I've yelled at people because that's what they responded to. That's not me, to your point, that's not me, but that's what works. So it takes a little bit of skill set to do that. Yeah, I think you want to be professional above all else, and hopefully you can find a position where you can be yourself. So that was, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.